What needs to stop being put on a pedestal? And nobility. Granted, on a whole, we've come a long way from blindly following the calamities of their influence, and a great deal of royalty around the world actually do good charitable work, but we still idolize them too much. And idolization is a potent form of power. I also feel like we've just replaced a lot of the people in power who would rule through coronation with the very same people in a suit, tearing down the walls of knowledge held by the influential few, and a wide distribution of wealth have been the only concrete solutions against this system of control. The government, well, most of them, is made up of government employees, and they're so inefficient. I don't think they have the energy to be purposely evil. You may have a minister, secretary for a department, but there's 99.9% more people under them actually advising, planning, implementing, and doing the work. Yes, but in their respective sport is fine. I wish we just treated people like experts in their field, actors, athletes, etc., and then we understood that they are regular people outside of that. It's just that everyone is constantly selling an opinion, a product, a lifestyle, and that's how people end up on a pedestal. Even when nobody really thinks so-and-so should be weighing in on X topic or selling Y product, often completely unrelated to their profession, but using their persona to sell it, they do it and it permeates through popular culture anyways. Celebrities shouldn't be put on a pedestal either. I think the opposite. Imagine if we treated everyone like celebrities. You see tabloid stories featuring your local garbage man. The local news decides to interview an accountant to ask random questions and advice unrelated to their field. We have huge award shows for people just doing the jobs they are paid for. Blue-collar workers are sponsored by Nike for work boots. Random acts of kindness are catapulted to national attention. There's too many politicians that either didn't have a career and don't get what it's like to work, or they got famous for a reason that doesn't transfer to law-making. I absolutely hate when politicians use the term working class and especially privilege. Overpaid sheltered assholes that never worked a real job in their lives going around telling people that actually work for a living and struggling to make ends meet that they're privileged and that they need to pay even more taxes. I was so worried about putting in my notice at work when I decided to stay home with my kids. Then I finally realized, if letting me go would be what was best for the company overall, they would do it in a heartbeat, no questions asked. Why should I feel an ounce of guilt for behaving the same way? Hell, they almost certainly had the position filled before my leave even ended. I am completely replaceable to any company. You must know my wife refuses to take vacation time or any personal time for herself, because then someone has to cover for her, even though other people have no problem making her cover for them when they're out. Hopelessly dedicated to being a good employee that she works unpaid overtime just to make sure that the office and charts are ready for the next morning so that whoever gets there first doesn't have to do too much. Does she get home late all the time and miss our young daughter's bedtime? Yep. Does she go to sleep super early because she's so tired and spends no time with me? Double yep. I made this mistake when I was very young. I started working full-time at 17 and devoted my whole life to a job that paid minimum wage and didn't offer benefits. Now that I'm a grown-up, I give my employers up to 40 hours a week. I work moderately hard, but I also take breaks when I need to. I don't do overtime unless I want the extra cash for something new and shiny. I don't make any personal sacrifices for them. I like my job, but they would replace me in a heartbeat if it helped them in some way. I'm under no illusion that they care about me as a person. The worst thing about narcissism is that the only people who understand the problem or think of it as a problem are not the ones living it. That is, the narcissist doesn't see anything wrong with them from their point of view. They just abuse and take advantage of everyone around them and are super toxic. I gave up on this a few years ago. I go to work my required time, and unless I'm on a job site where a customer is down, work is over at the end of 8. I will not respond to an email or call after 5 p.m. or before 8 a.m. Drawings due today and you're giving them to me at 4:30. Eat shit. do better, and fucking fire me. I'm out of here at 5. I get into video games / anime / whatever cartoon fandoms. Don't judge me, but every fandom has those people who are obsessed with the voice actor and or the person in the mocap suit. Like, you realize these people aren't the characters they portray, right? They were hired to voice a character because they had the ideal voice for the job, not because they act anything like the character. Well, creeps me out that these obsessed fans can't tell the difference between fiction and reality. Long-time Unix guy here. I've never understood information hoarding. I'm always happy to share with the team or whoever else needs to know. Indeed, I actively enjoy teaching and mentoring and do my best to go over the same topics until the light bulb appears over their head. I also make a point of saying why things are done a certain way, not just how. And I actively seek input on how to improve things. I try to avoid not invented here, and that's how we've always done it syndromes. One of my failings is I have a terrible memory. To make up for it, I write excellent documentation ... because I'm the poor fool who's going to have to read it 6 months from now. Such a minor complaint, but I fucking loathe how every time someone asks what a reference is from on Reddit, people either make a joke, as if to say lol wouldn't you like to know, or purposely respond with another reference to the show / movie / game, in order to get upvotes from people who like the source without actually telling the person what it's from. I just saw a thread where someone asked what show a Father Ted screenshot was from, and the most upvoted response was Craggy Island. Like, that's not even funny or clever. That's just purposely gatekeeping the title of the show with a further reference to it. Again, such a minor and insignificant thing, but it's emblematic of gatekeeping information. I see this at work all the time. The senior guy training the new guy, but he just isn't a good teacher. The new guy ends up just watching and becomes the senior guy's little helper. This is how it's supposed to be for the first few months, but I see it get dragged on way longer. Kinda sad. This happens for one of 3 reasons. You're a shit trainer, you don't care about your job, you shouldn't care too much but you have to at least a little, or, like you said, insecure and afraid to see the new guy get good and maybe even catch you slipping someday like you always do him. This reminds me of this great video of a deceased Japanese wood carver. https://b/ij9xjdak. The gentleman in the video talks about how difficult it was for him to learn, simply because the experts did not want to pass their techniques on to younger people. It was like privileged elders taken up to 12. They would hide their tools, would not work when people were over, and were so secretive. They didn't seem to realize that their art form was literally near dead, and if they wanted people to care at all they had to pass on their teachings. It should not take someone 60 years to learn something that's already been figured out. Furthermore, sports people are not heroes. Australia is very sports focused. It's very common for our media to coin sports stars as heroes. Hell, our biggest supermarket chain currently has collectible stickers of our Olympians called Aussie Heroes. So tone deaf, especially with the current circumstances in the world where people in medicine were risking their lives to keep everyone else safe. But yeah, someone who swims fast is the hero. As a vet, I wholeheartedly agree with this. There are some really shitty people in the military. Let me tell you about the one guy that swung a cat by his tail, hit its head on a door frame, then threw it into a burn pit while it was still alive because he wanted to. He thought it was funny. I don't know, but he 100% is no hero. As someone with bipolar disorder, I really hate this because I'd do anything to be normal. This illness has destroyed my life and taken everything from me. And people make cute memes about mental illness like it's just some quirky thing everyone can relate to sometimes. I don't mean to gatekeep because it doesn't have to be a certain level of severity for you to suffer. This isn't the pain Olympics. But nobody should think there's anything desirable about having a mental illness. It's good to destigmatize it. But when you normalize it too much, it just loses its meaning. Edit: I should have specified that I don't have a problem with memes about mental illness in general. I love them. I only dislike the ones that make mental illness seem so relatable that it's no big deal, like it's some quirk everybody can relate to. as opposed to something that destroys lives, because then, when your mental illness doesn't look quirky and cute, the stigma is still there. Also clarified what I meant about gatekeeping. TL Doctor, it's obviously unhealthy, but I do think some romanticization of mental illness by actual mentally ill people is a weird phase of acceptance. I know I went through that phase after Inpatient's Day because I was so relieved that my mental illness was being acknowledged. There was finally a diagnosis to put on this thing that was ruining my life. Treatment in the beginning takes a while since you have to try out different meds to see what works, start therapy, while dealing with the real world. Not to mention the 18 years/O brain is usually a mess anyway. I romanticized it because my mental illness seemed to consume and affect every part of me. I leaned to the diagnosis. It was an unhealthy coping mechanism for sure, but if I was my diagnosis then it wasn't my fault. My life was shit. Luckily I've gotten over that phase and just desperately want to be normal again, even though it's impossible. I'm learning to understand that, so learning to be healthy and stable regardless. There was something I saw about how TikTok is more toxic since a lot of embarrassing teenage and early 20s stuff has always happened, but now their face is attached to it and searching for clout. Unfortunately this includes PPL glorifying or faking mental illness, and it's fucked up. I feel sorry for pediatric psych. It sounds like a shit show. I sat in a restaurant a while back and overheard a table of 3 go round one-upping each other's social anxiety. I was seated at the opposite side of the room, and it was busy, but there was still no ignoring it. Make sure everyone hears you, Josh, so that the whole loud-ass restaurant knows that your sensitivity to unnecessary noise is just a fucking fashion accessory. Yes, people love to claim to have mental illness when they have never seen a mental health professional for a diagnosis. Another common issue is that people love to say that they have PTSD from a mildly stressful event. Like getting a bad grade from their teacher, or having a project deadline at work. People say they have OCD because they like things neat and organized. Please just say what you actually mean. I am really stressed out, or I'm type A and love organization. Stop using real, debilitating medical conditions to emphasize your points. Do you say I need a wheelchair every time your legs are a little sore? I have PTSD, and honestly, this shit really fucking pisses me off. Having gone through 2 years of therapy for anxiety and depression, I am happy to see mental illness become less stigmatized. But having depression is not a flex or something cool. It fucking sucks, and when I was at my worst, I wouldn't have wished that on anyone. I also see people use their anxiety, depression as a crutch to avoid doing things that are hard. I get it, but you still have responsibilities and people still expect you to get things done at your job or school. My dad told me once that the world doesn't care and you have to learn to be better because of your depression. Best advice I ever got. Then I learned to rise above it, and I'm able to handle everything much better than just saying, oh well, I'm depressed so I can't do it. I'm a stronger person for having depression, but because I have to be so I can be the person/husband/father/friend I want to be. Exactly. The thing about kinksters, and the BDSM community in general, is that we are all about the safe, sane, and consensual. That includes respecting the consent of those who are not in your dynamic. I don't get why people choose to actively make others privy to the goings-ons of their dynamic, such as by using a leash in public, when those around them haven't consented to it. If I would even consider them part of the community at that point because they have chosen to completely disregard the very fundamental rules that help keep everyone safe. Every so often someone asks me about kids and any suggestions on them, typically people thinking about having kids. This is what I say if they haven't had kids yet. When you have kids you are no longer living for yourself, you are living for another person. That doesn't mean you give up everything for yourself, but it does mean that they become the priority. If you aren't the kind of person who doesn't want to do that, then please don't have kids. Just be someone's awesome uncle, aunt. We need more awesome uncles, aunt. We don't need more shitty parents. Soldiers, for one thing, I've never met a single one who likes the ass-kissing thank you for your service culture in this country. It's just conservative virtue signaling. Also, it does absolutely nothing to help them with their real problems. If you want to show your appreciation for the troops, write to your representatives and demand that they stop fucking over the VA. Shooting home invaders with your legal guns. People literally daydream about the moment they could get their first legal kill a home intruder in the house they live in, with the guns they own. I understand wanting to protect yourself, but people act like they're excited for it to happen to them. Careful what you wish for. Trauma from something like that can last a lifetime, especially if you have kids that just saw you kill a man. I hate to say it, but veterans. I know a guy who basically spent 2 years playing video games in Germany and now he gets discounts for the rest of his life and also gets to stand up and take a bow at public gatherings. My dad spent 2 years in literal combat against the Japanese and never got, or expected, the goodies and applause that veterans get now. All these extravagant billionaires, Richard Branson and Jeff Bezos, have fucked off to space. So, no reason why that should be everywhere all over the internet and the news. Elon Musk is only famous for being the cool guy below air, even though I can't honestly say I know what he does to deserve such constant praise. On the flip side, some people obsess about hating celebrities too much. I think the Kardashians fall in this category. The vast majority of the time I hear them mentioned, it's someone like you talking about how overrated they are. How about we all stop giving a fuck about things we claim not to give a fuck about? Are they probably horrible people who are unnecessarily worshipped in some circles? Maybe. Probably. I honestly don't know or care. They are genuinely inconsequential in my life and I am inconsequential in theirs. I'm pretty sure their fame only stems from people who talk about them. Good or bad, publicity is still publicity. Stop feeding the trolls. People who obsess over hating something, especially celebrities, are just as bad as those who obsess over loving them. Like, I promise Kim Kardashian doesn't know who you are and doesn't care whether you love or hate her. She's rich, famous, and living the dream. Regardless of whether she's a good person or not, she has better things to do than to worry about what random strangers think. Loving her doesn't make you look cool. Hating her doesn't make you look cool. Both just make you look crazy. It's virtue signaling and it's weird. Mothers, stay with me here. Mothers should be good to their children and most are. However, there is a section of all parents who are abusive or shitty, and the stigma, especially in custody courts, is that mothers can do no wrong. This becomes a problem when you are a single father fighting to protect your child from an abusive mother, when society and the court systems cannot grasp that pretty girls hurt children too and that abusers don't have a particular look or gender. Family. Don't get me wrong, family can be a blessing, but a blood tie doesn't excuse abuse or give the holder free rein to be a douche and keep getting invited to stuff. But their family, nah, they're assholes and I don't have time for that anymore. You'll regret it when they're gone. Nope, I'll be relieved BCZ that I won't have to put up with all the shaming from weaker members who haven't cut ties, and society is much more comfortable with dead relatives as opposed to just dead to me. People think it's harmless because it's a plant. It isn't harmless, especially when you're a teenager with a developing brain. Any psychoactive substance has the potential to influence brain development depending on the habits of the user. If a 14-year-old kid smokes every day of his life for 10 years, at 24 there's a chance he'll have the emotional capacity of a 14-year-old. Yeah, weed isn't a drug like many others that can turn you into a savage and even kill you. But it's still a drug that can easily be used as a crutch, causing someone who doesn't know any better to fall into a hole that can be hard to crawl out of. As someone who smokes at least every other night, agreed. The weird reverence around it doesn't help, and seems to be overcompensating for its demonization. Like, smoking's bad, inhaling smoke is bad. Just because I skipped tobacco and went to something else doesn't make it healthy.